Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Coffee Nerds, where we have real conversations with real coffee nerds. And today I'm really excited to introduce to you Andrew Nishimoto of Wrigley Coffee, which is located in Long Beach, California. Andrew is the executive director of Wrigley Coffee, and we're going to hear from Andrew just some of the challenges that he faces being a business owner and just some of the things that they're trying to do beyond just serving coffee. So we're just going to get right into it. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And here we go. Here's Andrew Nishimoto. So I've got Andrew Nishimoto from Wrigley Coffee. Andrew, it's really great to have you on. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
I just want to give you the floor now to talk about Wrigley and your journey into coffee.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been kind of a weird entry into coffee. I've worked in nonprofit circles my entire life, primarily working with individuals facing housing insecurity and things like that. And so coffee was always this like side thing where, I'm pretty entrepreneurial. So I've thought about opening coffee shops. It's always, we kind of all go through that phase of like wanting to do something on our own. And so I was actually like on the road of about to open a coffee shop with a friend of mine. And then I got a job offer to work with another nonprofit providing shelter to families that were experiencing homelessness. And so decided to put that on hold, started this work in the nonprofit field, and then COVID hit and we started seeing some more like obstacles that our families were facing. And one of them was working, like they were trying to find jobs and trying to find safe places to work. And at the same time, I was talking with a local pastor actually, and we were walking in a neighborhood in Long Beach, and we saw this empty building that used to be a cafe, and we were like, "Hey, what if we created a coffee shop to employ the people in our shelter?" And it kind of just like snowballed from there. My like love of coffee and some of the work that I had put in to look at starting the shop came into play, and then there were just people around that like love coffee, love people, love community. And we kind of built this thing from that to provide jobs, provide job training, trauma informed care in the workforce, all these sorts of things all around specialty coffee. So that's kind of like where we're at now a couple of years later. So as I mentioned, I worked in nonprofit for so long, and I was always working within like areas of poverty, homelessness, like all these things. And what I realized was a lot of the people that I worked with, we would care for those that like were in need essentially. But we all were really passionate about like specialty coffee. Like we got introduced to it as we were growing up through the Starbucks like revolution, right? And then as we started to realize like, oh, there's actually better coffee than Starbucks out there. That's like more locally grown. And so, and then I think there's always this weird dynamic of like gentrification and like how that impacts housing and blah, blah, blah. But like specialty coffee always comes alongside that. And so it's a really interesting conversation where like, from our 9 to 5, we're trying to find homes that are affordable, but we're also looking for like high-end specialty coffee that costs $8 for a cup. And like, we're kind of like really trying to meld on that. And I think for me, I was like, well, I don't think that these things necessarily need to be mutually exclusive. And so, one of the ideas before Wrigley, when I was going to have like a typical for-profit coffee shop, and some other coffee shops around the nation do this, they offer coffee on suspense, coffee that people can pay for other people that can't afford it to come in and try specialty coffee. So that was like part of the original plan. So really, even though it's always been specialty coffee, there's been an element of like community building and equity that's been built in every like plan that I've kind of developed. And it just happened to take shape in Wrigley Coffee instead of anything else that I'd looked at.
Yeah, so Angie, let's fast forward a little bit and talk more about Wrigley specifically and how that process started and formed into what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, it kind of happened pretty quickly from, us as a nonprofit. We were providing shelter and case management services to families experiencing homelessness, to realizing like there's still a gap because a lot of these families, they wanted to work, right? They wanted to be able to provide for their kids, and they just were getting exploited in the places that they were finding. And more through COVID, as jobs became more and more scarce, the exploitation started increasing. And so we really wanted to create not just a place for them to work, but a place for them to work safely and to learn the skills to better discern places that they'll work in the future. And so like we teach them customer service, we teach them, supply chain stuff, we teach them cash management, like all of the typical things that you would learn at any fast food restaurant or coffee shop or anything like that. But we also do trauma informed care in the workplace training. One, to give them the tools to engage with their own trauma. We each come into work with varying levels of background trauma that like impact how we work and how we interact. And so this training is actually like good for everyone. But also one of the things that we wanted them to start to be able to discern for themselves wherever they landed in the future was, is this an unhealthy place to be? Or is this a difficult place to be? We've all been in difficult work situations, whether it's a deadline, a boss that maybe isn't great at listening, or so on and so forth. But there are some unhealthy work environments, things that you shouldn't try to overcome, but you should actually try to remove yourself from because it's just not healthy. And so giving them tools to be able to manage that understanding so that they put themselves in a position to be successful, or at least in a position to have the tools to be successful in the future. And again, this is all encapsulated around specialty coffee. And one of our goals when we created Wrigley Coffee was to create it to be a place that is elevated, much like other specialty coffee places. We did it. So the neighborhood that it's in Long Beach is a lower income neighborhood. It's typically one that doesn't get very many resources from the city. And there's no other specialty coffee like immediately in that vicinity, even though Long Beach has so many specialty coffee shops. And so we really wanted to make sure that the time and energy and money that we spent to get this space ready and the coffee that we made, it was all going to be quality stuff. And so it was, trying to work all of that in together at the same time. And we were really happy with the outcome, but also with the community like rallying behind what we were doing. I think was one of the most encouraging aspects of the project.
That's awesome. When it comes to those that work at your location, you were also talking about I heard something about like graduating, like a certain percentage of graduates. What's that entail, and how's that work into everything?
Yeah, so the way that like our program works is we hire individuals that have employment barriers. So whether that's poverty, homelessness, trouble at school, incarceration, any sort of obstacle that typically would get in the way of them getting a job in the future, we bring them in and we essentially have them for about 90 days, give or take, depending on how many hours they're available to work. And during that time, we train them in all the typical things to become a barista. We also put them through our trauma-informed care in the workplace training. And essentially the goal is that by the time they're ready to leave, again, in those 90 days, they're prepared for working in any typical workspace. So they have the tools and resources to engage with their trauma so that they can go work at an Amazon warehouse, or they can go work at a Starbucks, or they can go work somewhere else and be able to be successful there. And so that's kind of like how our program works. We do have I think we have 6 or 7 permanent staff. These are staff that we've just hired to kind of be working on an ongoing basis. And then these participants are people that we bring in every 90 days to kind of go through this program and then graduate into whatever their next employment opportunity looks like moving forward. So we are constantly training, which is great and difficult, especially when you're trying to be consistent with quality at a specialty coffee shop. But we've seen some really good success stories, which just keep us going, through the work.
Are these like one-on-one sessions, or are you typically, is it a group of people that you're training through that 90-day process?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So they do a lot of individual or two-on-one training, especially when they're working behind the bar, the typical customer service training, the barista training. We have a general manager that does a lot of that, and we've just actually hired 2 assistant managers that will also be like contributing to the training process. And then we do our trauma-informed training in different ways. Right now, we're doing a lot of it in group settings. So we're actually bringing our entire staff together to do that training. One, just out of logistical necessity. We don't have a ton of resources to be able to do one-on-ones with everybody. But also what we're seeing is that there's a lot of peer learning going on for individuals that are maybe more hesitant to, or maybe aren't even ready to engage with some of their own trauma. They get to hear stories and hear tools and resources that others have been utilizing and are willing to share, and are able to kind of like tuck that away for themselves. And so, especially as we've started to work with younger participants, so just in the past 6 months, we've started to work with high school age and college age students within our program. And a lot of them are more hesitant to like, share, which is totally understandable, but some of them aren't. And so they get to see their peers, they get to see people, the same age as them, the same time of life with some of the same traumatic experiences, share some of the tools that they've learned to utilize. And then we get to see them implement that in their own lives. And so it's kind of some of that peer learning that happens in group settings has been really powerful. We do want to build up to having more one-on-one sessions available. We do right now offer therapy to any of our staff that want it. We pay for therapy for our staff. And so that's like their one-on-one option right now. But we would like to have more of the trauma-informed training one-on-one opportunity as well. So we're kind of growing to that.
Gotcha. Wow.
That's very unique for a coffee shop to be working in that environment and offering that type of training to their employees. So yeah, that's really great. And that kind of like spawns my next question, which is, can you kind of explain a little bit the differences between a for-profit coffee shop and a nonprofit? How does being a nonprofit enable you to actually focus a little bit more on trauma-informed training and offering these types of programs to your employees?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of there's two sides, I guess, to this. One is, our hope is to figure out a model so that every place can be trauma informed in its workplace, right? So that piece we're trying to not make unique to us. It is, I think, right now, but I would love for every specialty coffee shop, I would love for, any business to be trauma informed in how they operate. So, whether you work at a large corporation like Disney or like Warner Brothers or whatever, that space, managers and, directors and all, they would all be trauma informed in their practice, because I do think it builds great outcomes for the corporation, which is a plus, but also just a much healthier work environment and more opportunities for more people if you have that type of environment. So that piece, we're trying to operate as if we are a for-profit, figuring out sustainable methods to make it work. On the nonprofit side, because we are testing so many things, because we're trying new things, because we are bringing in new trainees basically every other week, how we do that is we raise funds through donations, through grants, through community partners to kind of offset some of the, what I call them, are like planned inefficiencies. So there are certain things that we plan for that are more inefficient, and we know that, but it's in accordance with our mission more so than our profits. And so things like making sure that we always have, an additional trainer with our trainees, giving time and space for that training time that we pay them for, paying for their therapy, paying for their work time while they're in therapy, all those things are planned inefficiencies. Some of them are things that we will never be able to make enough money through the sale of coffee to cover. And some of them we are trying to as we build. We're 2 years old and we've seen like pretty good sales growth, but we need to continue to grow in order to become profitable, because as you'll probably hear more of, and you probably already heard, small businesses are not naturally profitable. They are very difficult, especially in the coffee space, to get to a profitability that's sustainable. And so we're still working there on one end. But some of these programs and projects that we wouldn't be able to do for many, many, many years, we're able to start now because of donations and community partners and grants.
So what's it like compared to like maybe a more traditional coffee shop, like the ones you mentioned in Long Beach? What is it like building community through coffee in your shop in Long Beach?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just, mindset. We really want the space that we take up to be available to others. And so, we do stuff like open mic nights, we do movie nights, community partners use our space after hours for like grief support groups and things like that. So trying to make the space more available. And so it really is just like kind of shifting the mind from like, this is our space in terms of like the coffee shop to like, this is our space, the community space. And that's something that we do have to make decisions on, like, okay, what is like a sustainable choice versus like what is a choice that's good for the community. So like for example, movie nights, like they cost us money to run. We pay for the rights for the movies. We, do all of that. And oftentimes we'll do that for like 10 or 15 people, which does not cover the cost, but we think it's a valuable thing to offer an affordable like family option in our space, right? And so that's kind of our mindset. And even little things, which, and don't hold me to this long term because I don't know if it will ever change, but like if you come into our shop, we're probably unique when you see it because all of our tabletops are 6-person tables. So they're all kind of geared towards people sitting with strangers. And oftentimes, people are uncomfortable with that. So they'll come in, there won't be a free full table, and they might get their drink to go. But what we've also seen is people, come up and say like, "Hey, can I take this other part of the table?" And then we see those people start to chat and get to know each other. And so it's something that we discuss almost every month on like, do we want to offer a couple two top like tabletops for people that want a little bit more like alone time? But it's something that we did create intentionally, and we do see like the outcomes of that happening. And again, those are always the like, okay, but could we be more profitable if people know that there's more tables available? That's something we talk about, but we try to make other options available, in terms of seating. We have 2 rooms that are available to rent that you can like privately hold either a meeting or just a one-on-one. So we try to create opportunities while maintaining some semblance of sustainability.
Yeah, I like the space that you guys built out there, and just walking around, it is a very welcoming environment. I love on one of your walls, you just have the community sign, right?
Mhm.
Does it just say community?
It says "but first community," kind of playing
Okay.
on the like "but first coffee" like
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. I'll try to get one of my pictures that I took. I'll just overlay it right here. But yeah, but first community, I think it's a great reminder of the why behind your shop, and the community aspect of that. So that's really great. I love the efforts that you guys are doing just to build community. How's the response been for the most part with you guys opening up shop in what you said is a lower income area of Long Beach, and offering what some would say a high ticket item, but with your focus on community? Like what's been the general response?
Yeah, I would say generally super positive. We get really positive reviews, on Yelp and Google and all that. But more so than that, we have people that like really communicate with our baristas and are thankful for the space. We have people utilizing the space, which is huge. I mean, the diversity of people that we serve coffee to is incredible to me. It's just outstanding. The number of like all the different diversity points that you can imagine are in Wrigley. And it's really cool seeing people drink coffee next to each other. You have some people that you can tell are pretty like well off. Maybe you've had the conversation with them or whatever, and they're there enjoying their coffee. And at the same time, we have case managers that come in that are meeting with their clients to help them find housing, help them get them back into school, meeting at our tables, getting them drinks there too. We have some partners that, we give discounts to for them to bring their clients and whatnot. And so just like seeing all these people sitting together is really, to me, super encouraging. It brings us challenges, right? When we have individuals that maybe are, you know, using our space as like their hangout because this is the only place they have to go. And some people are more comfortable with that. So we have to have that conversation from time to time. We have to say like, this is their space too, and so it gives us an opportunity to provide some education. It challenges our staff in certain ways that they wouldn't get otherwise. And so, yeah, I think that's a really encouraging part of the space that we're in. They've been so positively responsive.
That's awesome.
That's so awesome. I love that. I love the focus around community. There's a lot of really great coffee shops out there, but I think for me, one of the things that always stands apart that makes a huge difference is just the connection that people can make with others. And what you're doing is just incredible.
Yeah. So for you, Andrew, because you are a nonprofit business, your title is a director. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I just tell people that I hang out at the shop. That's kind of my role. But yeah, as a nonprofit, I'm the executive director because ultimately, we do offer like other programs. We have a curriculum that we can bring to other places to provide trauma-informed training. We do raise funds. We kind of have a different things that we do. And so that's why there's me, and then there's also other staff that kind of run the day-to-day at the shop and things like that. And I think the other main difference between a nonprofit and for-profit is the name kind of implies, we're not trying to grow a profit so that, no one has equity in the shop, no one has equity in the business. We Anything that we make goes back into our programs, goes back into, our staff, and making sure that we are still able to provide response to our mission that's essentially drives everything that we do. And so, the kind of the idea behind it is that there's no ulterior motive for us to make more money outside of, increasing our impact based on our mission. And so that's kind of the mindset that all of our staff have in terms of how we're doing this work. And so it's kind of, again, that's where we do want to build a sustainable, efficient model, but one that's effective in accomplishing our mission.
So there is still a focus on, being sustainable, but as a nonprofit, it's like the pressure is less on that and more on building the ethics or the ideals of what Wrigley Coffee stands for in the community.
Right. Like that. Yeah. If we were able to sell enough coffee to be profitable, we would just expand our program so that we're not anymore. Right. So it's kind of this ever growing thing that we do want to improve our coffee sales because then we can hire more participants. If we become successful enough to have multiple locations, then we can hire more staff. Right. And so it's like there is that motivation to be quote unquote like profitable, to build sustainability, but it is all focused around the mission of impacting more lives. And so
Nice.
that's kind of a little twist on it. But I think that's where you have to get people that are passionate about the mission. You have to get people that are like semi-competitive because you're not doing it for this like financial return. You're doing it for this like long-term impact in the world. And so that can get really exhausting and tiring when, you get month after month of like negative cash flow. So then you need to go out and fundraise and all these things. But you recognize like, okay, our outcomes aren't number of coffee cups sold. It's like how many people graduated our program and are now in a sustainable workforce, like location and employment location. How many of our current staff are like satisfied in their role within our company? One of the things that I'm most proud of is we have like an incredibly low turnover in our permanent staff. We've had staff that have been with us since we opened over 2 years ago, which, as you probably have seen in the different coffee shops, you don't see the same people very much longer than, a year or so. And so we are proud of the fact that people love to come to work at Wrigley Coffee. That's something that we take pride in.
Sure. And I'd imagine that the mission and purpose of what you do there is probably just gives a lot of kind of a self-worth and self-motivation to want to be there and make a big difference. So that's incredible. But with Wrigley Coffee, I mean, again, it goes back to but community first. It seems that, coffee, even though you originally wanted to open up a coffee shop, it's interesting how like these two different worlds kind of collided. Like you wanted to create a coffee shop, you're have this passion for helping other people. And now it's almost like the coffee platform is kind of like the vehicle to accomplish the greater good, the greater objective, right? So do you have any plans to create any kind of other vehicles to help you with your ultimate mission and focus to help others and help community?
We've looked at opening more shops, for sure. We've talked to other partners in terms of like spaces that we could bring, our idea into. But really the way, and this is like what I tell people is how we're going to change the world is we do have, a trauma-informed care in the workplace curriculum that we can bring to workplaces. And that's kind of how we will multiply our effect is there's only so many people we can bring into coffee shops. But like I said, if we could bring this mentality to larger organizations, to larger corporations and get them to implement it, then those people that had to come work at Wrigley to gain those skills because it was the only safe place to be can now go work anywhere that these are being implemented, because they will be safe there. They will be given the tools there. And ultimately, that's kind of how we see this like equity mindset being built is we bring this trauma informed mindset to every workspace, so that when someone wants to go somewhere, they don't have to wonder, am I going to be demeaned? Am I going to be exploited? Am I going to be abused here? No, maybe they have this like certification of trauma informed care in the workplace,
Yeah.
label, so they know like, okay, they're going to have the tools, resources, and access that I need to be successful here. So that's our long-term big picture vision is
Gotcha.
bring what we do to everywhere else.
That's amazing. I wish I could be a fly on the wall just to see all the things that all the people you're impacting and all the amazing work you're doing. I mean, it's very incredible. Do you have any of that data posted anywhere? I don't know, like, some coffee shops, they, talk about sustainability and the different, farms are impacting and things like that. I know this is very different, but I mean, is there any kind of statistics or anything that you post or publish anywhere?
Yeah, so in our shop, we do occasionally post some things. We have some stuff in our community room. We are currently like in the process of figuring out how do we maintain the integrity of the coffee shop as well as the privacy of our staff that are involved in the program while letting people know what we're doing, and I think that that's a balance that we try to like figure out. Like if you look on our socials, like it's pretty focused on coffee, it's pretty focused on like the drink offerings that we have. There's not a ton about our mission. There's a little bit because we want people to know what we do, and so we're really trying to figure out how to do that well. We never want to be seen as like, A plus mission, B plus service. Like we want to be A plus in both. And so we're trying to make sure that we do that in a helpful way. And so that's a great question. But yeah, we kind of try to do that more in like conversation.
Sure.
If we're doing like a fundraising event, obviously we share that kind of stuff. But we really do want the space for like that's available to be very special when people come.
Sure. I'd imagine very, very intimate, very trusting, things like that. It's kind of like the only thing I could relate it to is if I was going to have a private conversation with someone where they were going to share a lot of their personal life story with me and get really intimate as far as, like being vulnerable. They probably wouldn't want me to just post everything about them on social media right after that conversation or create like some kind of live conversation where everyone could listen to what we're talking about. So yeah, I definitely can understand that balance of, respecting people's privacy as well as, helping spread the message across as well.
Right. Yeah. And you could be on the lookout in the fall. We're going to be launching a new fundraising campaign because we're now our own independent nonprofit. We've just kind of like started to build our own because we were under another nonprofit before. So we're want to kind of relaunch and kind of share everything that's going on. And now that we have a couple of years of experience under our belt, we have some history. So it doesn't have to be the immediate, like you said, it doesn't have to be right after the conversation. It can be someone that we've talked to for a while, we have a good relationship with. So be on the lookout for that because we're going to create some content for people to really understand what we do. So that'll be coming out in the fall.
And for your shop, when it comes to the coffee, because that's something that we're pretty passionate about, exploring coffee through stories like yourself and other roasters or coffee shop owners. You're not just a multi-roaster coffee shop where you sell different roasters beans. You actually partner directly with local roasters to create your own blend of Wrigley coffee.
Yeah. So since we opened, we've partnered with Solid Coffee Roasters. They roast in Downey. They have a shop in Artesia and Bellflower as well. And we use their beans for a year and a half, and then we started talking to them about, hey, we have a couple of blends that we would like to try out, and we would love to make them unique to our shop. And so we have two unique blends that we work with Solid on. Our Willow Street blend, we're on Willow, as well as our Wrigley blend. And so we use the Wrigley blend as our espresso blend. And so we really, really enjoy both of those. One's a little lighter, one's a little darker. And then we also partner with Anomaly Coffee to provide. I believe right now we use their beans for our drip, and they're another local roaster that what we love about them is that, they're smaller. We get to have conversations with the roaster and just kind of learn about, what are we selling? Since we're not a roaster, some of that stuff kind of gets lost in translation sometimes. And so having someone, an individual that we can talk to is really nice so that we can kind of share more about that when we have customers come in and ask questions. And so we do sell, our blends retail as well as use them in our coffee. So those are the two roasters that we work with. And like you said, it's more of a partnership than just like a multi-roast thing, because we kind of develop the blends as well as like how we're going to release them alongside the roaster.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that you're actually partnering with them to develop these blends. That's
Right.
very cool.
Yeah, it's fun. We've been enjoying that part of the process. We've like it's gotten us excited enough that we've thought about like, what if we started roasting? But like we want to not jump into that because it's a huge like, a lot of education, a lot of practice, and so we're kind of right now leaning on those that have a lot of experience to continue to provide quality coffee.
Yeah, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there, so that's cool
Mhm.
that you guys do that. What would you say is the most challenging thing about your job?
It is that balance between our mission and profitability. Like I said, I am very competitive. I like to win every month, and to me, that's like getting closer and closer to profitability every month.
Hmm.
And so I'm always tempted to like, oh, what if we just cut some of these hours? What if we do this? What if we, whatever? And I think what's been so incredible in that difficulty is that as my like job. I'm a nonprofit consultant, and so I work with a bunch of different nonprofits. And I always encourage them like to not have this scarcity mindset, but to have this abundance mindset of like instead of saying like, what if we don't have this? Say like, what if we had too much of this? And so I have to always like turn that on to myself and be like, okay, no, what if we did this to increase that and to increase that to offer more of this? And it's like super scary and risky. But so far, and this has been like the biggest blessing, is like it's always paid off. When we extended our hours, our sales grew by a larger percentage than the cost of extending our hours. Like all these little things that we changed to kind of take a risk in that abundance mindset have paid off. And so that's always the challenge. But for me, I have like a good support team and so far a community that's been really supportive of those decisions.
I just really admire the work that you're doing, Andrew, and what you stand for, what your coffee shop stands for. I wish that I could have another hour or two of your time just to keep talking about what you're doing and the kind of person you are, just because everything Wrigley's doing, everything you're doing, your team's doing, it's just very impressive. And I admire the work you're doing within
Mhm.
the platform that you're working within.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Andrew, there's so much on your plate as a consultant, as an executive director of Wrigley. How do you balance that with your family and activities, or what's going on in your head as you balance all of that?
That's a good question. I think one of my huge pushes is to just always have a great support team. And that's, Wrigley Coffee is just the emblem of that. I have a board of directors as a nonprofit, and they're all incredibly supportive. I have a staff that like loves to come to work, that will fill in for shifts when we need it. When we have a last second like event at night, there are people that are volunteering to take those shifts. We just hired a director of operations, and she's like jumped in, both feet in, ready to rock. And like, just really, I think having people around you that are excited about what's going on makes the job so much easier. And so that's kind of been my goal, is to make sure that the people that we bring on in each of my, parts of life understand the importance of family, because then that allows me to do my family stuff, and then are passionate about what we do. So it's never really a burden for them to do the work. Obviously, we're all work is hard, but they want to do it. And so that's the exciting part, I think, the part that makes it manageable.
So as your coffee shop, as Wrigley is all about the community, what I'm hearing is that you also have your own community that you rely on, and that's equally important as you build out community in Wrigley.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, right on the nose for sure.
So not only do you direct this coffee shop and work in coffee, but you told me that you also coach
Mhm.
soccer and coach your kids. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Like what what do you do on the side when you're not working your business?
Yeah, that's I've always been a super competitive person. And I feel like the way to continue to do that once you're no longer physically able to compete as well is you start coaching. And so I've been coaching high school soccer, and then I started coaching my kids teams ever since I graduated college essentially. But it's just a great way for me to like get out, get some competitive juices flowing, and really like be involved in my kids' lives in a unique way, I think. Luckily, like they both like me being around. I think at some point they probably won't be as excited, so I got to take advantage of that while I can. But it is. I feel like so many life lessons, even things that are like in the coffee shop and in the work that I've done, have come from my experience in team sports, and so I just feel like it's a really powerful tool to like learn how to work within a team, how to deal with loss, how to work when you're dealing with 102-degree temperatures and stuff to run, all the things. And so I'm it's another like avenue for me to engage people and to really, I think, grow with my kids as well as like high school students that I get to connect with regularly. So it's pretty I really enjoy it.
Man, that's cool how you can bridge actually some of the leadership traits of a coach to what you do today at Wrigley. Well, that's great. So I'm going to just transition to a few quick questions, and these are just meant to be like really fun, informative for those that are listening. But right now, what's in your cup? What are you currently drinking or enjoying? Maybe it's
Yeah.
coffee, maybe it's not. I don't know.
It is coffee. Yes. No, right now, because of the summer months, it is an iced Americano with a splash of oat milk. When it cools down again, it'll be probably more of the honey oat latte, hot honey oat latte.
Both sound really good. That
Yeah.
iced Americano for sure.
Yeah. That's what I'm drinking right now.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Made with a mocha pot.
Sweet. And then when you're not at the shop, Andrew, what are you brewing at home? What's your equipment setup look like?
Yes, so I have the Breville espresso maker, and I measure my beans right now. I typically do half calf everything. So I do half of our decaf blend and half of our Willow Street blend. Get 20 grams of that, grind it up, and then make my iced Americano at home with kind of oat milk. Right now I'm using Califia oat milk at home, and then we use something different in the shop, but it doesn't deliver on Amazon, so that's why I don't use it at home.
Okay, that's cool. And so, yeah, it sounds like you're more of an espresso guy than a manual pour over.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd never liked coffee growing up until, my first internship. I think it was maybe my last year in college. It was the most boring job ever. So the way I filled my time was walking to the coffee pot and back. Like that was how I was able to sustain working there. So I started to get a taste for coffee, and then pretty much from there jumped straight into the lattes and then now the Americanos. And so it's all been pretty espresso based after my first jump into the coffee pot. Maybe that's why I didn't like it. I was forced to do it just to take time. Now I have an aversion to it.
Yeah, I think unlike both of you, I don't have an espresso machine, which I need to get one. But yeah, that's why I've been just doing tons of mocha pots. So I just pack in my 9-cup mocha pot. I usually get 2 good strong cups of espresso out of that.
Nice, very
Yeah.
nice, cool. And then last question for you, Andrew. What are some tips that you would give to somebody who, like you, has an interest in coffee, wants to build out a coffee shop? Maybe this is advice for your younger self. Like, what would you do different to open up something that you are very passionate about and dream of owning your own shop?
Yeah. I think my brother actually is starting a business out. He lives in Indiana. They're starting a plant and flower shop. And one of the advice that I gave him was make sure you have enough capital up front to do everything that you want to do well. Because it's like that whole what's the adage of like you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So when someone walks into your shop at your grand opening or 2 months after your grand opening, you want them to experience the thing that you want them to experience. And so make sure that you're creating that from day one. If you want them to show up and there to be pastries available, make sure you have pastries available. If you want them to show up and you're not out of anything, then don't be out of anything, right? And so I think that that's something that, again, the abundance versus scarcity mindset, it's not just like safer to have all the things, but it's actually going to give you success later on because you're building a customer and you want that customer to become a repeat customer.
Feel like you could take that advice and apply it to so many things. I mean, that's just the right mindset to have.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, that about wraps it up for today. Andrew, thanks so much again for coming on and just having this conversation with us. My favorite thing about this is just being able to see and hear from you just behind the scenes of like, what goes on at a small local coffee shop. And I mean, you guys are definitely making an impact in your own community through the workings of Wrigley, and just I'm sure there's some lifelong impacts that through either your own work or through your team, that you're impacting lives in a great way. And so I love that about these conversations.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
So Andrew, where can people find you if they want to try your coffee or see what you're up to?
Yeah, we'll definitely want everyone to come out to the shop. We're on Willow and Eucalyptus in Long Beach. So it's right off of the 710, right off of Willow there. So we'd love to have you at the shop. But if you can't make it in, you can follow us on Instagram at Wrigley Coffee, or check us out on our website, wrigleycoffee.org. Yeah, we know, like I mentioned, we're going to be updating some of our stuff about our programs and things. So we'd love to have you follow us and kind of learn more about what we're doing. And hopefully we'll see you at the shop to try our coffee.
That's awesome. Yeah, we hope to be there too. So
yeah,
Andrew, thanks again. Again, we appreciate you for taking the time to talk to us.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. If you did enjoy, please like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future videos. And if there's something that inspired you about this conversation, let us know in the comments, or you can email us at hello@thecoffeenerds.co, or you can visit our website at thecoffeenerds.co, or you can visit our Instagram page at The Coffee Nerds. We're really glad that you're here, and I want to personally invite you to follow our journey as we have more real conversations with real coffee nerds. Have a great day.